Hey, good afternoon. This is the June 21st, 2022 meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted via remote means only. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or with the right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 8, Verizon Channel 26, or online at www.northandovercam.org. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So I will call this meeting to order. Before we get started, we'll just do a very quick roll call. Say your first name. If you could just say that you're here. Rob?
Present.
Thank you. George?
George is here.
Thank you, George. Laurie?
Here.
Thank you. Dick?
Here.
Thank you. Roger?
Here.
Thank you. And Chris is also here. We have quorum. Okay, so good seeing you all. I think the first item on the agenda is to approve minutes for the last meeting, which was April 19, 2022. Does anyone have a motion?
I move we accept the minutes as written.
Thank you, George. Anyone second it?
I'll second that.
Thank you very much, Dick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are you going to call a roll call?
That's probably a good idea, George. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we'll start with Rob.
Aye.
Thank you, George.
Aye.
Laurie?
Aye.
Dick?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Chris is also a yes, unanimous vote. Thank you, George. I'm a little rusty. It's been a few months, but I'll blame it on that.
Well,
Next item on the agenda is an update on the Mass Housing Partnership loan for Fountain Drive. And Rob, I think you would you enlighten us with an update?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. We've had we've had some incremental progress on the Fountain Drive project. The first issue to report is that the Housing Authority was awarded a $35,000 technical assistance grant from MHP. The money is helpful, but the primary advantage or the primary benefit of this relationship is to enlist MHP's active participation in the project's development. Sometimes when you're just at the part of a long list of people looking for information, it's hard to get their attention. But when there's some of their money on the table, we've found historically that there's a little more attention planned. So attention paid to the question. So we think that's a good step. They will be a good resource and hopefully an active participant. There are some wrinkles in this type of project. It's not a pure development project where your concerns would be zoning and financing and et cetera. There are ownership issues, there are procurement requirements, et cetera. There are a lot of nuances for a publicly funded affordable housing project that we're going to need some guidance on, or the Housing Authority is going to need some guidance on. So it seems like a good resource.
Rob, excuse me. Are some of those complications because it's a housing authority?
Yes.
In other words, they're more limited by the state than a typical real estate developer.
Well, yeah, there are more restrictions, there are more requirements.
More restricted,
right.
And then also, wasn't that $35,000 going to be used to hire the financial consultant?
I think there's some flexibility as to its use. There'd be a certain level of overlap with the proceeds that the trust awarded, but there's going to be large demand for all sorts of money. So I don't think it'll be a problem.
Okay.
Secondly, I got an email from Maggie Clary last week, and she's identified and spoken with the development director, the assistant development director at Cambridge Housing Authority. CHA has acted as a consultant on similar projects with different housing authorities over the years. Their experience, they've done it themselves, and they've contracted out, serving as a consultant for these type of projects. It really seems like a pretty good fit for what they're trying to accomplish. The deputy director said that she would provide a scope of services proposal by the end of the month. So we'll start digging into the proceeds that have been lined up to help with the pre-development work on the project coming up quickly.
Rob, I'm sorry, my computer silenced you for a period in there, and I missed. She's going to be essentially a project consultant. Is that right? Is that what you said?
They provide consulting services to outside parties. They've developed these type of projects themselves, additional housing on surplus land, and they've also offered the services to outside parties as a consultant.
And does that include financial? In other words, is she going to function as a financial consultant plus do other things?
We are hopeful that that's the case, because that's a critical component, to the development, clearly the financing, and there's not the knowledge of what DHCD, which pools of funds or pockets of funds that DHCD decides that they want to fund these type of projects.
Right.
Is an important piece of knowledge, and somebody with some experience in doing these type of projects would know that off the top of their head, which programs to apply, which programs to request funding from.
And then also, I'm sorry, I didn't hear her name. You were the audio was out. What's her name again?
I didn't provide her name. She's the Deputy Director of Development at Cambridge Housing Authority.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not withholding it from you. I didn't get the name in the update that I received.
Well, as I said, I didn't hear anything. My audio went blank for about 15 or 20 seconds.
Oh, okay, good. I could track it down for you, George, if you wanted to.
No, that's all right.
So that was a big step forward. That is, a piece that we've been trying to identify here for a few months. So it's nice to have a conversation with somebody knowledgeable on what it takes to get this type of deal done. So hopefully at next meeting we'll have a scope of services or perhaps a signed contract that we could review and discuss.
That sounds great. Thanks, Rob.
Sure.
No, thank you, Rob. Thank you for the update. Do you anticipate anything that needs to be done by the trust coming up? I imagine you would have told us if you anticipate it, but I guess in future meetings, if you feel as though there might be some anticipation for either additional funding or anything that the trust can do, please let us know.
Okay, good. I will bring the information back. I believe had the grant agreement been signed?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
well, good. The $50,000 grant agreement was signed. The second one wasn't, right, Chris?
Yeah, is that waiting for my signature, or did that just not make its way out yet? But I think you're right that only the grant agreement for the professional services has been signed.
Yeah, we have to. Well, so I guess we held off on it because we weren't sure what we were including in that grant, right? Because was that going to be for the design, and we're not there yet.
Would we want to make it as broad as possible for third-party consultants required, whether they're consultants or finance?
That agreement has been signed. That's the 50,000. But then we allocated additional funds towards what I thought was maybe the design, or maybe so you're good with that right now. And Maggie did sign it and Chris signed it. We just didn't do the one for the larger sum of money yet, because I think we were waiting to see what would be maybe included in that.
Would it be prudent to hold off for 30 days to bring in the consultant, get a feel for where the money would be needed, or do we need to? as opposed to having to redo it because we've thought it's hard to envision it wouldn't be used for design anything other than consulting and design. There'd be some legal fees probably as we try to figure out what a home rule petition would be appropriate, et cetera. But
yeah, I would wait till we get the scope of services in, or the housing authority gets the scope of services in from the Cambridge Housing Authority, because then at least we'll know, like, what if it's over 50,000?
Well, the contract will be for more than 50,000, but it'll be on an billable hours basis, so that we certainly wouldn't exceed 85,000, which would be the 50 and 35 for the foreseeable future. 35 being the MHP money also.
You can use that money for, I guess I was confused. So the MHP, oh, that doesn't get paid to them. They gave the grant to the housing authority, so they can use that towards the consultant. Okay, I get it.
Perhaps we should ask Maggie to use the MHP money first before she uses our money. But what are the mechanics on the grant? The housing authority, I'm sorry, the trust grant. Are we just cutting them a check for $50,000 when she asks, or will it be on an as needed basis for the invoices? Who's reviewing those, things like that, in case Maggie asks?
So it'll work the same way it did when she was submitting the bills for the study. She should submit the invoices to me. I send them to Chris. We review them, and then I submit them to accounting.
Okay.
I mean, if you want, yeah, I can't give her the 50,000 up front without any invoices. I was thinking that it'd be easier if we just gave her the 50,000, but I think accounting might have issues with that. So it's best if we have the invoices.
And I didn't suggest it. I didn't want to suggest that was the case. It's as I was saying the words, I realized it didn't make any sense, even if it is a grant. That would be poor financial control, so it didn't seem to make much sense. But the way you outlined it certainly makes more sense than any other option. Okay, I'll let Maggie know. I'll pass the information along to her.
All right. Well, thank you again, Rob, for the update. Next item on the agenda is an update on the down payment assistance program.
Okay, one second. Just a quick update. We had 3 applications. 2, I believe, are waiting to find properties. 1 is closing June 30th. They did not need the, I shouldn't say they did not qualify for the full 30,000 because 10% of the purchase price was only 17.5. So far 17.5 is what is going to be paid out by the end of this month. In 9 days, hopefully, they'll have their closing on the 30th. And we have, actually, we might need to vote this at the next meeting. So I don't know if you guys know, but we no longer have in-house town council.
Oh, so no, I didn't know that.
Yeah. The ad went out for a replacement, but it's not going to happen probably for at least a month or maybe longer. I don't know where they process. But so we're the documents are being reviewed, the mortgage, the note, and anything else by KP Law. So just at a future meeting, we're going to have to pay that bill.
Okay. So the position hasn't been abolished. It's just the person has resigned. Is that
right? Yeah. Suzanne left. So they're looking to fill the position. It's just, it hasn't happened yet. And it probably won't happen. Like I said, I don't know where they are in the process, but it probably won't happen for at least another month or so, I would think.
Okay, so the legal fees will have to be paid out of our trust fund.
Yeah.
I think that's fair enough. I mean,
it shouldn't be too, yeah, they shouldn't be too high because we drafted the documents. So, I mean, they received, I think, pretty good documents that really just needed a quick read over and, let us know if we were missing anything, but
right.
We'll see.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay.
it.
Well, thank you. That it's exciting to see the money being used or like soon to be used for the first closing and a few others in the pipeline. I don't remember how much we allocated for this program offhand, but I think we were anticipating like a handful of home buyers benefiting from this program, at least with the money that we had first allotted.
I think we said I think we made it like a 210. We thought maybe 7
Yeah.
at 30 a piece.
That sounds right. Yep.
But like I said, this first one, they only needed 17.5 because that was the maximum they could get with the purchase price.
Yeah. That's very low. It's surprising that that's 10%, but
It was an affordable unit.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's an affordable
Beautiful.
unit, so they piggybacked with the affordable unit with Chapa.
Yeah. Well, that's great, especially with interest rates rising now.
Yeah, I know.
It goes further, I imagine, for the home buyers.
Yeah, this wasn't it's funny, this wasn't the first application. The first application, they're still trying to find a property. It's just it's not easy.
Yeah.
Is this for a condominium then? That's in a 40B project?
Yeah, it's one of the I think it was that Meeting House Commons
Oh, okay.
on 114.
Yeah.
Anything else on the down payment assistance program? All right.
No.
Last item on the agenda is more housekeeping about the positions that we have in the trust. I think technically right now we only have 2 official positions, which are chairperson and treasurer. Rob serving as the treasurer, me serving as the chair. We don't have a secretary, but I think Laurie has been serving the function of unofficially as the secretary. First of all, I just wanted to know, have we, at least when I was voted as the chair, we didn't put a time limitation on that. Rob, I don't think we put a time limitation on your appointment as treasurer. Of course, we don't have a secretary, so we didn't put a time limit on that. But I was taking a look at the either the trust declaration or the bylaws, but it didn't talk about length of service by the officers. It also didn't require positions to actually be appointed. But I do think while we have no secretary appointed, it would be great to have someone. Laurie, you've been doing this for as long as I've been on the trust. And, I do think it would be fair to give other people a chance to take on that position and ask to take that off of your reins as well. I don't think we have to vote on it today. But I just wanted to bring it up and at least talk about it in terms of should we put term limits or identify the terms of the office, the officer positions, and whether we should officially appoint a secretary. That, if we don't appoint a secretary, I think probably the fairest approach would be that everyone takes a turn being the secretary for all the meetings that we have. But just wanted to throw this out there, just generally, to see what people think.
So I don't think we have term limits on any one of our boards or committees. I mean, but it's encouraged by the select board to rotate your roles every year. Doesn't have to be a year, but we try to do it. Like the select board does rotate roles every year. So and we don't repeat roles. So and whoever was chair last year is not going to be considered for chair this year. And as long as I've been on the board, I've never seen that happen where one person kept the role for multiple years. Now, I've been on other boards where the same person was chair for many, many, many years. But I think it's a good practice to rotate it. It gives everybody a chance to have that, that exposure and that experience of being in that seat. Now that said, do we have to do it every year on this board? That's up to this board. If we want to, Chris, if you're rolling as chair now, and and we don't meet as often as the select board meets. We meet sporadically every couple of months. The select board meets a couple times a month, and other boards meet multiple times a month. So maybe it makes sense because you're really just learning the role of the chair and getting into the the cadence and getting things rolling. We don't want to change it just now because give you a chance to really keep that momentum going. That's my thought. I don't see any pressure to change it or any roles unless anybody else wants to take on that role. But to me, it's not a requirement, and I don't think having term limits is a requirement either, because I think most of these boards, the people are reasonable, and most people don't want to stay in those positions for all that long either. So term limits usually aren't an issue.
I think that I agree, Dick. I don't think that there's a need for term limits. I think that I would, for this particular year, would want to see Chris stay on as chair for reasons that basically you said, that he's just really getting into the groove of being chair. I think the first year for any, and I know it was this way with me, it's sort of a learning process for almost the whole year, because you're just learning how to, about notices and doing the agendas, and then how things function with your approvals and things like that. So, I mean, if Chris is willing to serve for an additional year, I would say, we good to just let him continue, unless somebody else is adamant about they want to be chair. And as far as the secretary is concerned, I don't think we need an official role. I think I kind of morphed into this mostly because of the fact that I'm also an employee of the town. So a lot of the boards have an employee that is the person that does the meeting minutes. For this particular board, it wasn't required to be recorded. So it was always someone would have to go to the meeting to take the notes and everything. And it would always be someone from the town. So we sort of like morphed away from that, having one of the other clerks from town. Since I was on the board anyway, it made more sense for just one person from the town. And I'm fine with doing it. Especially now that I'm not chair anymore. It was a lot to do it when you're chair. So I'm okay, unless somebody, is like, yes, I really want to take notes, then I'd be glad to give it up. But
Well, no, but what about formalizing it we'll elect you secretary?
that's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. I don't know if it's necessary. At some point, I think maybe if all meetings are recorded, it may always be just one person watching a meeting, but we're not there yet for this board. So it's easier for a staff person during the workday to take minutes when they can watch the recording. So, but since our meetings are not going to be recorded, this is actually the last meeting that we can have unless they change the law. This is the last remote meeting that we can have. So.
I didn't realize that. Oh.
Yep. So from, if we meet in July, and I don't know if we are, but if we meet, unless they change the law, we will have to be in person.
I clicked off by mistake. I clicked the X button and dropped for a moment. But my only comment, and I was listening to Laurie's discussion about secretary. If we did want to install a secretary position, is that in the charter? Do we have to look at how this board is organized? Are there specific rules and regs around what we can do?
That's a good question, Dick. I just looked at the trust declaration. I didn't see anything there. I didn't look at the charter. So
it mirrors the declaration.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure the bylaw the Affordable Housing Trust bylaw that was voted at town meeting is exactly the same wording as what's recorded in the registry for the trust. We can double check, but I'm pretty sure it's. the
No,
same.
that's right.
I wonder if this might be a good opportunity to discuss the structure of a broader discussion on the structure of the trust. For instance, is there any consideration? I'm on different boards and committees where you're rotated off after a certain amount of time, and it brings in new people, new ideas. I also wonder about the number of people on the trust. It's a relatively lean group. And when we're looking for people to volunteer for things, it's sometimes difficult to find somebody raising their hands. And I don't know if there's any institutional knowledge on how we came up with that number, whether we might be better served by having a couple additional bodies,
Well,
and whether people should rotate off after about 10 years or 8 years or whatever the number is that we feel comfortable.
my recollection is that the bylaws do specify 5 to 7 trustees.
Yes. There is a number listed. I don't know how many, but there is a number listed in the bylaws.
Yeah, I think it was a range because we used to have 5, and we that didn't work because too often.
And as far as rotating off, Rob, that actually is a very good idea, but I think that is up to the selectmen, the select board. So I think when reappointments come up, if a person doesn't want to be reappointed, I think that's how it usually happens. They'll rotate off, or, I guess as a group, we could recommend to the select board when they appoint new members to let them know that it would be great if, they didn't plan on being for more than 6 years or whatever. I mean, our appointments are 2 years apiece. So every 2 years you come up for reappointment. But it's up to the select board whether they want to reappoint or not. So rotating people off, if the board says, hey, you guys have served for such and such amount of time, we have somebody else interested, that would be up to them. But I think the issue with that is you don't get people, like there's nobody banging down the door to get on the board.
Well, an associate of mine, where I used to work at a nonprofit, is in the town, and I was talking about some of the work we were doing in the trust, and she had expressed an interest. I don't know what the demand would be, but I do believe there is some value to having new people come on the board periodically to the trust, new ideas, new exposures, and it might be something that we consider or kick around. But
I 100% agree.
Yeah,
I do. So if there's someone interested, I would encourage them to apply.
Yeah,
And if someone doesn't voluntarily step down, I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens with reappointments. I don't know who's up this year.
off with their heads, right?
That nobody on this board is not going to be reappointed. Everyone's going to be reappointed. I guarantee that. The second thing is, and if you have people that are interested, they should apply. And then if an opening does occur on this board for one reason or another, somebody moves or someone decides they switch for time commitment at that point, then we have what we used to call a bench of people that would be willing to step onto the board. So if there are, the board's full, but you have people interested, usually what people do is they apply for multiple boards, and then at the time we interview them, we review which boards have openings and which, what might be a best fit for them. And if there's none that they want to do and they just really want to be on the affordable trusts, then we put them in, in a waiting position. And when an opening comes available, we consider them for it.
All right, I agree with the concept of rotating and getting new blood in and so on. And if the number of trustees is limited, I will volunteer to resign because I've been a trustee longer than any of you. And so if we're going to rotate, I should be the one that goes off first.
Well, I think would be better served, and I don't know much about how this is structured, but addressing this or approaching this from a coherent top-down approach, as opposed to just talking individual parties, would we be best served discussing what the best profile is, what the term limits, and then roll them out prospectively as opposed to individual people just dropping off. Chris.
We don't have, yeah, but Rob, my point is that's not up to us. We could say whatever we want. That's a select board decision.
Okay.
Unless you want to do a bylaw change at town meeting, and we want to recommend at town meeting that we change the bylaw to put term limits. I mean, we could do that as a board. We could bring it forward at town meeting with an amendment to the bylaw. That's a different discussion. But for right now, as it stands, we don't, I mean, I'm sure the select board will listen to our recommendations, but it's totally their decision of who would be on the board and who wouldn't. But I do think one of the things, if somebody is interested, I would encourage them to attend our meetings, because then they can get a feel for it. And then they may say, I don't want to be on this. Like, it's better to have them come to a meeting. Right. If they want to participate with public comment, great. Then they see what it is. They may decide that, okay, no, this isn't what I thought it was. I don't want to. Or they could say, yeah, this is great. This is exactly what I want. And I'm not opposed to stepping down either. So right. I sort of feel like there's nobody in the wings waiting. So.
Well, that's it. I mean, we don't have a huge queue of people waiting to jump on a lot of the boards. And
right.
A lot of times we have to advertise for people to join. So to give up people who are engaged and working hard on a board, just because we want to rotate, we don't have anybody to rotate in. So I would say, George, you're not going anywhere.
Right. I'm sorry. I expressed myself poorly. I'm not suggesting that we start lopping people off the board.
Oh, no. I know what you was.
I'm wondering whether it might be a good time or a good moment to take a step back and say, we've been doing this for a while, and I think generally it's working well, but perhaps we could use a couple other bodies. Perhaps we could tweak it in different ways. I would find it hard to believe that if we had a well thought out proposal for amending our bylaws and charter, that the select board would object to it if we were able to justify it. And I'm not, this isn't a hill anybody's willing to die over. I'm just wondering whether it might be a good conversation to have at this point.
I think it is a good conversation.
Yeah, and I think if we had it, we'd be the only board in town that would have it. Right, because I don't know, Laurie, do you know of any other boards that have term limits? I don't know of any that have any term limits. So
no.
If we do it, maybe it sets a precedence, maybe it sets a model for the others. But yeah.
My personal opinion is it should be townwide term limits for the boards and committees. Yeah. That's just my personal, it shouldn't just be a bylaw change. It should be a new bylaw limiting terms for all boards and committees, but that's just my personal opinion.
Anyway, so I didn't mean to cause a commotion here. I'm retired, so now I have more time to raise ruckus like this. So I'm sorry if but it does seem that we can it's working well, but we shouldn't be afraid to try to tweak it to make sure it's as successful as it could be going forward. So.
No, I agree. I think, and I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm saying. I think if somebody was waiting in the wings, I would probably step down voluntarily. I think some people are committed because they don't want to leave an empty seat.
That's and there may be other members of the select board that would like to take this role too, so I can certainly offer it. I mean, not that we're all looking to lop heads. Right. I mean,
Chris, you and I are going to be the only ones here by the time we get done with this meeting. Everyone's jumping in.
Maybe some of my fellow board members don't know that there is an opportunity to serve on this board, and they might like it as much as I do. So maybe I should give them that opportunity as well.
And once again, I don't want to repeat myself, but I'm speaking prospectively. Going forward, if we think this is the case, and if it's the appropriate time, that going forward we'd have a trust of 8 people or 7 people, whatever the number would be, and that you could only serve it rotate, perhaps provide some structure for the rotation on and off for the board, the select board, and perhaps term limits, but more prospectively than anybody jumping ship today.
Well, when Chris is going to be invited to come to the select board meeting, I believe in the fall, I think Chris was trying to look at his schedule or whatever. So at some point in the fall, so the select board likes to have the boards try to come in once a year to just give an update. And perhaps he can mention that we're talking about maybe a bylaw change for term limits and get the feel of the board and see whether they would support that or not.
Yeah, that's a great point. I will suggest that, I think it's beyond just term limits. I think we're also talking about possibly it's a term limits and or just expanding the size of the trust, right? Where instead of saying it needs to be 7 members, that we could keep it open-ended or even, cap it at 9 people. Personally, I think every single person on this trust is invaluable. I could say without hesitation that I've learned tremendously from each and every person, including Joan, who's not here today. So, I would hope that it's not going to be a case of, losing members, but just adding new members that we can all help kind of groom and take a longer perspective on affordable housing in our town. But Rob, I think you bring up a good point. I was pinpointing officers or members of the board where you're thinking about, hey, this is a good opportunity for us to just consider everything, and being proactive about the functions that we serve. So I'm happy to give an update on that perspective when I go speak in front of the select board, and perhaps we should have at least one more meeting before that, where we can have a longer discussion on this. I think another thing is that, Rob, you've been the treasurer, and I think all of us kind of agree that you should continue being the treasurer, but we haven't had an opportunity to reevaluate whether it's something you still want to do, whether you want someone else to help you with that, or even just, for you to put an end date on it. So, I think that could just be kind of part of the conversation as well.
Yeah, I'm happy. There's not a lot of heavy lifting, to be honest with you, Chris. We get the report. I do follow up with the town accountants periodically with questions or issues, but it's pretty light lifting. I'm happy to continue, but if we want to rotate off, somebody else wants to step into the position, I'm happy to step aside too.
So thank you, Rob. What I would suggest we do is have a more structured conversation about this during our next meeting. Like I said, I don't think we need to vote. Laurie, I think we've essentially volunteered to be the secretary, but in case anyone else wants to take on that role, or even if we figure out another way to address that, because I do know, I'm horrible at taking notes, and I understand how much effort it takes into taking notes while you're being an active participant. So I think there is a value to saying, like, perhaps we might not have a secretary and we could all individually take turns, taking notes for meetings as we go along, just so that we give everyone that opportunity to be able to just kind of sit back and just be an active participant without having to take notes. So, because that meeting just happened, maybe, this is a good time for us to think about it and then, have a dialogue with the select board. Then, if it's something we feel confident about in terms of making recommendations to the change of the bylaw, we could propose an amendment at the next town meeting.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds good. But then what about what about if we just elect Lori secretary now?
It's not on the agenda. No.
I'm sorry. What did you say, Laurie?
Nothing. I'm kidding.
We'll make an honest secretary of you.
I don't know, but we got to be off in 4 minutes. So.
Yeah, I'm going to suggest we hold off on that until we talk.
Okay.
I think we also want to talk about how, if we do appoint her, how long is it going to be for? I think we also want to talk about how long. I'm happy to continue serving as the chair, just as Rob is happy to continue serving as the treasurer. But I think we should talk about, what is the expectation? So
Okay, well, I'd just like to express my thanks for you three for continuing to serve. I support you for what that's worth.
Thanks, George.
Thanks, George.
Thank you, George. So, unless anyone has anything further to say on that topic, I think we can adjourn and well, we should probably pick a time for our next meeting. And
I say we skip July.
Okay. I would definitely second that. Are folks okay meeting in August?
Sure. Yep.
You know, figured, so
How is I'd say it's probably between the 16th or the 23rd, which are both Tuesdays.
Either one works for me.
They're both fine with me.
Both good for me.
I'm not good on the 23rd. I can do the 16th.
That's fine with me.
Okay, 16th.
Okay.
In person.
At 5:30 then, or would we move it up or move it later?
I mean, it's up to, let's see, Rob's retired. So Roger, Dick, and Chris.
I like the
early.
I like the 5:30. That way, if I'm running late at work, I can just go from work right to the meeting. So 5:30 works good for me.
Yeah, it's a little tight for me, but I'll try to make it. If I have it in my calendar, I should be able to make it.
Chris, can you make
Yep.
it for 5:30?
Works for me.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Rob.
All right.
George,
Yes, yes.
Laurie,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
and Chris is a yes. So unanimous vote to adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
Wow, with
Great.
1 minute.
Thanks, folks.
Already 1 minute to spare. We did good.
Thank you.
Enjoy the summer, you guys.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. You
Bye.
too.
Bye.